It started overnight. Trucks full of meat, fries, and coffee beans suddenly ordered to turn around. McDonald's ran out of packaging. Starbucks hiked prices twice in 1 week. Farmers in Iowa watched millions of dollars in soy rot in the sun. This isn't inflation. This is a self-inflicted hit. A single U.S. tariff meant to punish China just ricocheted across every drive-thru, diner, and grocery aisles, shutting down the arteries of America's $2 trillion food empire. Meanwhile, in Washington, trade officials scramble. A tariff schedule meant to squeeze China's industrial exports has inadvertently swept up inputs that the U.S. agri-food industrial complex depends on. The newly imposed duty on certain industrial aluminum profiles is bleeding into can packaging and processing machinery. The result, small packaging firms in Ohio already report 23% higher lead times on aluminum stock this week, according to an internal industry dispatch. At the same moment, Tyson Foods issues a memo warning that tin plate steel surcharges could add up to 7 cents per can behind its canned goods line. On the receiving end, restaurant chain procurement offices are blasted with revised invoices. Cisco, the giant food service distributor, reports surcharges up to 18% on goods imported or processed with tariff-impacted components, according to an internal memo obtained by trade analysts. Before the weekends, regional quick-service restaurant chains in Texas and Florida quietly adjust contract terms with suppliers to shift cost burdens down the chain. In New York, a franchisee of a major burger chain walks into a monthly earnings meeting with investors. He presents that his input cost index rose 12.4% since April, outpacing inflation by 5 points. Investors push back. If you raise prices, demand falls off a cliff. So he's forced into a dead zone, raise enough to cover margins, but not so much to lose customers. On the ground, diners begin noticing. In Louisville, a carry-out chain's receipt shows a burger price up 45 cents, fries up 25 cents, and a soft drink 15 cents. Local news aggregates similar receipts in Detroit, Phoenix, and Raleigh. Social media chatter builds. When did a combo meal cost $11? The shock ripples beyond consumers. Venture analysts begin marking down restaurant sector multiples. In agribusiness, the fallout is worse. U.S. soybean farmers are losing their largest buyer, the Chinese market. This year, China purchased no U.S. soybean exports. Now, with retaliatory tariffs, soybean prices have plunged roughly $64 per acre in high-yield states like Illinois, according to Reuters on October 3, 2025. Farmers scramble for other markets in Vietnam, Nigeria, and Bangladesh, but volumes remain far behind what China used to absorb. Simultaneously, manufacturing falters. U.S. manufacturing contracted for the 6th straight month in August, with the PMI slipping to 48.7, amid complaints that sweeping import duties choke component supply, as reported by Reuters on September 2, 2025. Capital investment in facility construction dropped 6.7% year-over-year in July. One plant in Indiana reports a halted production line due to missing imported fasteners. Import measures deepen the crisis. The ISM's imports sub-index plunged to 39.9, the lowest reading since early 2009, signaling that component flows are rarefied, according to Reuters on June 2, 2025. At the same time, customer inventories are at a 15-month low. Manufacturers warn that they have no buffer. Restocking means buying at much higher prices. In the global food network, structural risks silently intensify. A recent study of the International Food Supply Network shows that shocks targeting major producers, especially the United States and India, can push the system toward collapse. In particular, the soybean supply network is judged the least robust among staple crops, according to Han Yu-ju and colleagues in April 2025. This suggests that a concentrated tariff shock on United States soy exports risks fracturing global supply webs. On the policy front, a legal bomb drops. The United States Court of International Trade rules in VOS elections, Incorporated versus Trump, that the Liberation Day tariffs exceed authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and orders enforcement halted, as of the court decision on May 28, 2025. The ruling points to the lack of explicit congressional delegation and calls the executive overreach into tariffs into question. The government appeals, but the decision stokes turmoil for businesses that had already adjusted to the tariff regime. Meanwhile, fresh pressure mounts on food sectors. The National Restaurant Association estimates that upcoming 30% United States tariffs on goods from Mexico and the European Union could cost United States restaurants $15.16 billion within 1 year, according to a letter to U.S. Trade Representative Greer, reported by Reuters on July 30, 2025. The group identifies risks to supply of coffee, beef, and other agricultural imports. It positions the industry as a major casualty of overbroad trade measures. Grocery projections add shock. According to Yale's Budget Lab, recent United States import tariffs in 2025 could raise household grocery bills by up to $4,900 annually for an average family before behavioral adjustments reduce that burden, as reported in Food & Wine 2025. Their modeling suggests food price rises of 2.6% overall, with fresh produce surging over 5% regionally. The USDA forecasts home food costs will climb 2.2% in 2025. An unexpected lever kicks in. United States, Mexico, Canada trading ties fray. In February 2025, tariffs of 25% were imposed on all goods from Mexico and Canada, except for energy, which was taxed at 10%. About half of United States fresh fruits and vegetables now come from Mexico. That link is under siege, according to the United States-Canada-Mexico Trade War Wiki. As imports from Mexico shrink under duty, domestic supply is forced to fill gaps at higher cost. In California's fields, the plot darkens. Escalated ice raids shrink the farm labor force dramatically. In Oxnard, where 3/4 of U.S. fruits and nuts and 1/3 of vegetables originate, arrests rose from 699 in May to nearly 2,000 in June 2025, according to Xinyu Li and colleagues. Analysts estimate crop losses of $3 billion to $7 billion and produce price hikes of 5 to 12%. The labor shock compounds the tariff shock. At distribution hubs, railcar availability falls. Rail operators report that railcars fitted with refrigerants now face tariff-induced maintenance cost hikes. A Midwest cold chain operator warns that capacity has contracted 8% in 3 months. Trucks idle, routes get rescheduled. Some chains reroute via slower, more expensive highways. Delivery reliability collapses. Consumers respond. Check management evolves. Families skip sides, reduce orders, consolidate trips. Chains record 5 to 8% drop in average ticket count in some metro markets. One regional chain in Phoenix sees same-store sales shrink 4% month over month after pricing changes. Investors revise growth expectations downward. One fact forces rethinking. Chains had built cash cushions expecting modest inflation, not multi-front breakage. But now, over 47% of food and beverage businesses say tariffs directly force menu price increases, and 41% cite ingredient cost stress, according to the Fast Casual Industry Survey of 2025. That's not a ripple, it's structural stress. So if cost shocks reach deep food inputs, can chains escape without structural collapse? Enter the biggest unknown supply contraction feedback. As menu prices push consumers home, demand for packaged and processed staples plunges. That lowers scale for ingredient processors, sending downward pressure on their volumes and increasing per unit costs. Then processors raise prices to sustain margins, another wave of inflation. In mid-August, U.S. container imports bounced back 1.6% year-over-year, but volumes from China dropped 10.8% according to Reuters, September 9, 2025. That suggests trade rerouting, but not replacement. Key food chain inputs from China, aluminum, specialty chemicals, packaging materials, are harder to replicate, so rerouted trade brings fragility, not stability. Backing up, the broader goods trade deficit has widened. In April 2025, the U.S. goods trade gap ballooned to $162 billion, the highest on record, and that's up 9.6% year-over-year, according to the Commerce Department. Some economists estimated that trade drag actually cut GDP by as much as 1.9 percentage points in that quarter. Tariff-driven stockpiling and, well, distortions just keep making things worse. At the same time, the heart of the U.S. food chain, the processors, packagers, and distributors, faces bankruptcy risk. Some mid-size packaging manufacturers in Michigan, Ohio, and Georgia are applying for emergency tariff relief. In one case, a firm supplying restaurant containers says it may have to idle half its workforce for lack of affordable aluminum feedstock. Amid this, legal uncertainty looms. The appeals court might stay the VOS ruling pending appeal. Businesses that already restructured face reversal risk. Meanwhile, Congress proposes a bill to cap executive tariff authority at 15% without legislative sign-off. Still, if the bill stalls, chains run blind. One regional CEO describes the dilemma. We can hold price increases below 10% or maintain margins, but not both. He pauses. So we'll likely do neither well. That framing reflects the brutal arithmetic cost inflates faster than price tolerance, pulling earnings downward. Farmers, meanwhile, see credit stress, declining export demand, falling domestic prices, and rising input costs, fuel, fertilizer, machinery, combine. Credit agencies warn of rising loan defaults in Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska rural banking districts by late 2025. Overseas foreign buyers read the collapse in trade as opportunity. Argentina and Brazil ramp up soybean shipments into China, while Mexican vegetable exporters fill niches vacated in U.S. supply networks. U.S. food chains lose negotiating power overseas and domestically in parallel. Then a final destabilizer tariff pass-through increases inflation, which squeezes household disposable income. As take-home pay shrinks, consumers retreat further from out-of-home dining. Analysts at Stifel project that restaurant chains could face layoffs and 3 to 6% declines in same-store sales in the remainder of 2025. The downward spiral compounds. No one predicted this cascade. It began with a miscalculated tariff targeting industrial goods, but it has engulfed meat, grains, packaging, labor, logistics, consumer demand, and legal structure. The American food chain empire, long taken for granted, stands vulnerable. Which connection fails next? We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.